going on, everybody? This is episode 5 of the Off Key podcast. I am with my very friendly and awesome co-host, Steve Schmidt, still dressed like Steve Jobs as always. And
my always shirt.
Apparently. But I'm matching you this week, so it's fine. I'm rocking 97.9 The Loop, baby. The Loop t-shirt.
Chicago, represent.
Yeah. Man, they're still on HD1. You can still listen to The Loop or HD2 or whatever. But RIP for the original Loop. Anyways, we're going to talk about some new albums this week and some homework assignments, and I'll let Steve jump in, man. What'd you do this week?
So I asked you, because we didn't get a chance to talk about it last week, I said, what do you want me to listen to? And you suggested Euforquestra, their live album, which was Let Us In. And it was back, I think, from 2012. They've been around for a while, though, haven't they?
Yeah, they've been making music for a long time.
Yeah, so this was probably a little earlier on in the career, but it was great. It was a
good, dude. I'm glad you liked it. That's awesome.
It was a really fun mix of kind of like funk and soul and reggae and like a bunch of different like feel good, jams.
They are a super talented band.
Yeah, and I mean, it started off like the first track on that album is a 12-minute just instrumental opener. And it just kind of continues to build and build and build. And I didn't know if they actually had vocals until the second song kicked in, which was probably, I think, one of my favorites on that album, which was She Came In Through the Bathroom Window.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's still a popular song by them, but it was the first 3 tracks really flowed into each other.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and listen to it, which I was going to do this week, but I failed. I started it. But Medicine Bow Run is one of my favorite songs of theirs. Like the first track on the album. I love that song.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was called at first, but I had to double check. But yeah, it was. There's almost like a Latin infusion. Right? Yeah, like you want to salsa dance to it and kind of just like get down. But no, it's super fun. I don't know, where are they from? Are they from?
We're from Iowa. So my sister-in-law, Jenny, shout out to Jenny Jeter, her brother is one of the founding members of Euforquestra. That's how I heard about him. That's how I found out about him.
Jenny's brother is?
Yeah. Jenny's brother, Ryan, is one of the founding members of Euforquestra. He plays saxophone, and he doesn't play with the band anymore regularly, but generally every year at Camp Euphoria, which this was supposed to be the last Camp Euphoria this year, which is a music festival in Iowa, which if you've never heard of it, it is super awesome. It is headlined by Euforquestra every year. It is basically their small little music festival on this guy's farm. But typically, Jenny's brother comes back to Iowa for Camp Euphoria and plays with Euforquestra every year. So they play Friday night and Saturday night, both nights, which is why I've told you for the last couple of years now, because I've gone, I think, 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
My brother and his wife have been going, obviously, for like 10 straight years. It is one of the coolest things I've gotten to experience. It's such a small, unique, fun festival, literally on a guy's farm. Like you're just hanging out at his house. It's crazy.
Which totally like removes the corporate aspect of festivals. It's really become like just a mainstay nowadays.
Yeah, but and don't get me wrong. There's companies that have food trucks and whatnot there. And I would say maybe you're talking like. My guess is they probably sell. This is just a guess, so I could be way wrong. If somebody who's listening has gone to Camp Euphoria, and my guess would be you're looking at probably about 2,000 people being there. And that might be an overestimate, but it's super fun. And so definitely next year, if you like that album that much, you have to come because this year is supposed to be the last Camp Euphoria ever, and because of obviously COVID-19.
Yeah.
And the butt fuckery of 2020, they have moved it to 2021, assuming that we can still have shows, will be the last Camp Euphoria. So I thoroughly encourage you to join me for the last Camp Euphoria next July, and it should be pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I really want to, because I know the last 3 or so years you've always told me about it, and I didn't realize it was Camp Euphoria, and now it's making sense as I'm saying it, but Euforquestra.
It started off, from what I understand. Yeah, it started off, from what I understand, as a fan appreciation show, basically. So they put the show on for fans in Iowa, and then they I guess really enjoyed it. Everybody had a great time. The guy who owns the farm, his name's Jerry, decided to have him back, and it just kind of rolled into this Camp Euphoria festival. It's awesome. It's so much fun.
Yeah. And I know the live Let Us In was a fantastic little, I think it was only 9 or 10 songs on there.
Yeah, but how long is the album? I mean,
they range from 3 minutes to 12 minutes. So you really don't, it's probably over an hour or so, but there's definitely a lot of different influences and flavors that go into there. And Soup, I know I've heard Soup a long time ago.
Yeah. Soup is their most popular song, like to the general public.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
It's such a goofy, fun song. It sounds like a Sesame Street, like in the best way.
Absolutely.
It's like super fun. But if anybody hasn't heard it, it's probably a good entry point, I think, for anybody who hasn't heard Euforquestra. But it's probably one of their more popular tracks. But I kind of did try and find a little more information. They're hard to kind of learn about. There wasn't a ton of information.
Yeah,
I know it sounds like they have a main band and a supporting band of extra musicians that come and
there's
fill out the band during live.
Some people that'll pop in with them, but usually it's like a main 5, I think.
Yeah, and so it's for being around for 10 years, I wish they had a bit. It seems like their following is still growing.
I hope so, and I think they've been around for even longer than that. I don't even know when they started. I'm pretty sure they started, I want to say in like the mid 2000s, like maybe in the 2005 range, 2006, 2007, somewhere around there.
Okay.
But yeah, they've been doing the Camp Euphoria thing for, I don't even know how many years. It's been a long time, and I'm honestly I'm super happy that I got introduced to it and got to experience the last 3, and I'm really excited to go to the 4th one and see everybody come out, and kind of, because I've made some longtime friends from going to that festival because we literally camp next to the same people every year, and they're awesome, and we can't wait to see them. And shout out to Sean from Iowa. Sean is one of the guys, him and his brother Jason and his mom and dad, they camp next to us every year. Or we camp next to them. I'm not even sure, but they're from the Iowa City area as well. And when Sean was coming to Chicago last fall, he hit me up and was like, "Hey, we're going to the show at the Bottom Lounge. You want to come?" And so we got together and we had a super fun night. My brother and Jenny came out and met up with us too. And it was great. We had a little Camp Euphoria reunion here at the Bottom Lounge, and it was super awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. We were all really sad because we thought it might be small enough that Camp Euphoria might be able to continue because it's a small festival,
Yeah.
We didn't know kind of how the COVID stuff was going to work out, but we didn't know if they were just going to shut it down and be we're not going to do it next year. But thankfully they've decided to do it next year and have next year be the last one.
Well, I promise you, I will find a way to make it happen.
It's really simple, and it's not crazy and massive. So your wife, Megan, I think will really enjoy it.
Plus, it's $70.
It's pretty cheap. It's I think it might be next year. I'm guessing will probably be $110 for 3 days of music.
Yeah, which is totally fair.
It's awesome. It's super
for someone to rent out their place for you.
So, what else? Anything else about the album that you wanted to throw out there, or?
Nothing major. It was fun. It was a solid 10 tracks. Their live stuff I saw on YouTube, just things I looked up randomly. I can't remember the names of tracks, but their drummer has some of the best hair I've ever seen.
Oh, that fro is so fresh.
Oh, it's so big. It's got
He's really good. He's really good.
But they gel together really well, and I kind of want to at least see them live at least once before,
Well, and they continue to tour. They play in Colorado a lot. They're based out of Colorado now.
Okay.
Yeah, and so as far as I know, I believe they're based out of Colorado. If I'm misspeaking, somebody please correct me. But they play still a lot in Colorado. I know that for a fact. So if you're ever out there, and I know you've gone out there a decent amount, but when things open back up again, you can probably go see them out there. As far as I know, they plan to continue, as a band for the foreseeable future. So
good.
But I'm glad you liked it, man. They're a super fun band, really positive, enjoyable music. So if you're in a bad mood, they're always like a good band I feel like you can put on and get in a better mood at least.
100%. I think that's exactly what happened. I threw it on when I was driving around, and it was like 95 degrees out, and it felt really good. Windows down kind of thing. But
they're awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, that was my homework this week. I appreciate you sharing that with me. And what'd you listen to?
So I know we're trying to prevent some of the overlap, but I listened to the Grimes. I listened to, I would say, about 7 tracks of the Grimes album, which I thought was very interesting. And I get why you enjoyed it. I think why so much of it reminded me a lot of like older industrial 9 Inch Nails, but with like a female lead vocalist.
Yeah, I could actually see that. Like,
yeah.
There's a lot of electronic to it.
Yeah, a lot of it did. And then there was the one thing that really caught my attention on there.
So you listen to Misanthropocene, right? The new one? Okay.
Yeah, sorry for not putting that out there. So like the Delete Forever, which is track 3, is like starts off like you go from these two very digital, like it almost had like I would say the vibe of the album to me was very like post-apocalyptic kind of, sci-fi like montage scene in a movie. Like that's the whole feeling I got the entire time, which was cool. It was kind of fun to dive into that and experience that. But Delete Forever, I felt like kind of came out of nowhere after you hear the first 2 songs. Then all of a sudden it's like this acoustic kind of solo ballad, but then there's some digital stuff that comes in a little bit later. But the one, I think it was...
Did you watch the music video for it?
No, I was just listening on Pandora. I think it was Violence. I thought if I was going to like pick a single off there, I think Violence was the one I would probably I could see getting a lot of like, I don't know if she's been getting radio airplay from it yet. I'm sure she will, or what. I don't know what they've been playing from it, but Violence was the song kind of really, I think, stuck in my head the most.
I think that it was the most popular off of that album. Actually, I think it's one of the top ones on Spotify or
But when I heard it, I was like, okay, like if I was picking, from what I've heard so far, if I was picking a single off this record to put out, if it was my album, this is probably what I would.
Yeah, which is funny. Violence and Delete Forever are the 2 top singles from that album right now, so streaming wise. But yeah, they're definitely more accessible. Some of the songs, I think they go on for a long time. The opener was really kind of lengthy.
Yeah, no, but it's, I mean, like I said, I think so much of it, when I heard, especially the first song, I was like, I can totally see why Steve likes this.
Oh, yeah.
If you're unfamiliar with my colleague, Steve is one of the biggest 9 Inch Nails fans of all time that I know of anyway. Even though we didn't necessarily grow up old enough to when 9 Inch Nails was really starting, but he loves the band and always has.
I'll do a whole episode we'll dedicate one day.
Well, and that's how the show basically started, was I wanted to do an interview with Steve about his love of 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah.
And that's how this whole thing started. So I guess we have Trent Reznor to thank for us doing 5 episodes of this show now.
That's where I get the black t-shirts from.
There you go. But yeah, what I heard I enjoyed. I'm going to probably try and finish the rest of it this week. But I definitely think if you're looking for something, kind of sci-fi industrial along those lines, like digital rock, I thought it was really, really interesting. And for something kind of in that style to be led, done by a female, I think is a little, and I don't mean to like be sexist or anything like that. I just think it's a little kind of out of the ordinary, if that makes sense. Like you don't hear that tone and style or stylistically as much, I think, from a female.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I definitely thought it was interesting and worth listening to. So like I said, if you're listening to the show and you're looking for something a little bit more like digital industrial rock, like definitely check it out.
Yeah, and I could definitely see where you're coming from, and especially in the sort of concept, like the entire thing is packaged as one sort of like broad theme, and it's sliced up into those 10 sort of, I know we talked about last week, the sort of modern day gods and demons, and so the same way, I mean, I'm not making very similar comparison to like Downward Spiral, but it is one of those things where it's got a theme to it. You know, and there's a story to be told throughout that you can kind of pick out characters and pick out ideas. So,
and that's the album that it was like very much reminding me of, was that tone of like kind of, I think it was Downward Spiral.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely differences, and I don't want to get into it too much.
Yeah, I know.
But I get what you're saying, and there's this there's a soundscape to it almost, where it's not necessarily about like musical instruments like four chords, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You're creating an atmosphere with the noises that you're generating, and I think
very Gabe of The Office.
Yeah.
I create soundscapes.
He was in my apartment once.
I didn't know that. That's crazy. Was that the same Matt Walsh night you had Gabe for? Oh, okay.
Same night. They were in there together.
You failed miserably.
Shout out.
Glad
you at least gave it a shot, though.
No, I enjoyed it. I went for a walk today and put that on, and I was very intrigued. And like, I'm not afraid to admit, if something doesn't catch my attention within a couple of tracks, it'll usually take me a little bit of time to try and come back to it, but usually I'll turn it off. But no, it caught my attention for sure. So,
yeah, I usually give up after 3 tracks if I'm not going to like it. So
I guess I don't know if we should be admitting that, but whatever. You know, I think that's how most people are anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to find the good in things. The whole point of the show, I think, is to try and find the good in things that we normally wouldn't listen to. So to give it that sort of shot. But there is a point where you just know there's no shot of you liking it.
I don't think this is for me.
Yeah. And I've certainly run up against a couple of those albums that we haven't talked about because of those facts.
Hey, there's a lot of stuff we leave out of the show that we listen to each week, and that's fine. You know, like
it's not for us.
We like music, and we're not here to like bash somebody's hard work and, you know, effort in making something that they wanted to make. So
yeah.
What's something new you listen to?
So I know I mentioned this last week, but I went ahead and I listened to the Dixie Chicks / the Chicks now, the new album Gaslighter.
Oh man.
Yeah. I loved it. I thought it was great.
Okay. I'm an asshole for laughing.
No. I
want to formally apologize to the Chicks for me basically prejudging their album.
Yeah.
But it's not to say that they're not talented, because I know they all play instruments and they all sing very well. So what the hell do I know? But continue with your review, please.
Well, I mean, first of all, to start with the name change, I thought that it was kind of a weird thing that I didn't know they were coming out with a new album. And then obviously it made news that the Dixie Chicks dropped the Dixie because of the George Floyd protests. And in my head, I was thinking, like, why is this a big deal? They literally haven't done anything in like 14 years. Lo and behold, it was because they were putting out an album like 2 weeks later. But like, that's how far down like they had fallen on the radar for me. And I know they've done things throughout the years, like they've done guest appearances, like tours here and there, but it was their first record in 14 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emotion that can come out of somebody, and a lot of experience that comes out of somebody over 14 years. So,
well, I mean, like scaling it back a little bit, like to try and understand the history of it. So like in the 90s, they kind of hit it big in the country scene, you know, wide open spaces, like stuff like that. They were like probably, I think they were one of the top female groups of maybe all time in terms of their record sales and everything.
Well, in the 90s, they crushed it, man. And that was when crossover country was like really hitting the airwaves. Shania Twain, the Dixie Chicks, and all that was changing at the time.
And they came in out of that, and they basically started as like a bluegrass band. And Natalie Maines, the lead singer, she didn't come on till later, but it was a 4-piece bluegrass group, and they wore these like cowgirl dresses, and they were very like old folky, sort of like traditional bluegrass. And then once Natalie Maines, who's kind of like the lead singer and kind of, you know, the most popular, I guess I would say, she's the most recognizable to me. She came in and they kind of got rid of one of the other chicks, and then developed their sound into something that's more contemporary. And then they kind of, from there, that's when they kind of took off a little bit more. They got a bit more attention. And then I think at like 98 to like 2003 was kind of their golden run of just putting out like 3 solid, like platinum, diamond records, whatever. But the thing that killed them was in 2003, because they were really big in country, was that George Bush statement when they said, yeah. And so
you alienated your fan base.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And like reading about how bad it was.
Dude, people were so upset.
They got blacklisted from like every country radio station in America. Like people, they couldn't go to the CMT, like all this stuff. Like they basically got shunned and like shut down, and they still put out I'm a non-believer. But yeah,
put a hashtag in our Instagram post that says hashtag Charlie the Unicorn this week.
Yeah, so people actually know what the hell we're talking about. But sorry. So yeah, I mean they put out one album after that, and I think it had like Traveling Soldier on it, which is kind of the song that was leading into them saying that they were ashamed that George Bush was from Texas, which was the incident that they refer to. But after that, it just seemed like they were just drained by everything. And then I don't know if they really went on hiatus or whatever, but for a long time, it was just like they didn't put out any more records. They would tour occasionally. They really stayed kind of out of the States. I think they did some stuff in Europe. But they were really quiet for a long time. And then obviously the first thing I had heard from them was the whole dropping the Dixie thing after all that time. And I was just thinking like, why is this a big deal? But flash forward to now, but they put out Gaslighter, which was about Natalie Maine's divorce with Adrian Pasdar, who is an actor. That is,
but okay.
From what I could tell, he was like, I think it was a lot of network television shows. He was on Heroes. He looked recognizable, but I didn't know him that well.
Yeah.
But holy shit. Like, the amount that she burns him in this album is amazing.
Yes, that's hilarious.
And like, one of the funny things about it is that when it was being produced, he was trying to sue her because they were like trying to file things in divorce court and everything. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that he requested was that he had to get access to her any unreleased music, because as part of their prenuptial agreement, it was like she couldn't slander his name in her songs. So he was trying to get that music, but he had also sued, like he was trying to get the prenuptial agreement turned invalid because it was no longer like she owed him money because she made more, I guess.
Okay.
It was this really big messy thing. So they basically look into the legal background of it.
So none of it worked for him is basically what it sounds like.
Yeah, basically.
And all the music got released anyway. And
well, he fought to get the prenuptial agreement turned invalid so that he would get the money from her.
Yeah.
And then part of the prenuptial agreement was that she couldn't write songs about him.
Yeah.
And so they turned over
he screwed himself, basically.
Yeah. And then
what was the album like, Steve, besides the prenuptial agreement and the back?
Well, like, so I mean, there's basically like 3 themes that are on the album. Like basically, the divorce is like the main overarching like theme. Like probably 60% of the album is about that. Like the opener is about Gaslighter, which is I've meant to look this up. What the
it's a psychological term for basically like, if like you tell me that. That you like if you said something or did something and it's basically me telling you no, you're wrong, that never happened, even though that like it did, basically, I believe is how it works. But
it's manipulation basically.
Yeah.
And because I remember I was watching a Brian Fallon interview and he was like, I don't get why the Gaslight Anthem is now this like weird thing, because people started associating gaslight with that term. But
according to the Jujul, manipulate by psychological means into questioning their own sanity. So basically, like if you said and did something and I kept telling you, no, you did not say or do that, or that's not how this happened, to the point where you're like, am I crazy? Did this really, is this how it went down? So sounds like it was a very happy marriage.
It sounded like, I mean, the entire thing was kind of like a look back at like all the wrongs that were done, but there's like probably 5 main divorce tracks on there. But Gaslight,
just 5 main divorce tracks,
I would say. But you know, I would say Gaslighter, Tights on My Boat was also a really clever, like brutal sort of acoustic song, but it was basically saying like, I hope you die soon. Like, but the whole Tights on My Boat reference is that he cheated on her on a boat that was hers because she makes more money.
Yes.
And she's like, there's a line in there about how, you know, I hope your dad pays your taxes now that I'm done paying them for you. Because I mean,
this is some cold-blooded shit right here.
It is, and she digs like the knife in, and it is like, and not only that, but the production, like the musical quality is great. Like the final track on there, "Set Me Free," is basically about like finally just like getting out of court, like getting free of all this bullshit and moving on.
Absolutely.
But you know, there's other tracks on there that are kind of, probably the other main theme is sort of parenthood. You know, how she's explaining this whole thing to her sons as they're growing up to try and explain like, hey, your dad's a dirtbag, but you know, be good guys. And then also kind of moving on from that, like there's another track on there called Juliana Calm Down, and it's addressing like other younger people in her life and just how they approach the world. So there's sort of like that, you know, parenthood, motherhood.
There's a kind of break from the divorce theme at times with a couple of tracks, maybe.
Yeah, and it's it kind of deviates a little bit from that main theme, but I think the other thing, you know, there's a little bit of political discussion in it, and the main track of that is March March, which you know, ranges from gun violence to global warming to you know, just basically the state of the world right now.
Yeah.
And but it's done in a way that doesn't seem facetious. It's just like, it's clever. It's there's points on it where it seems a little hokey, but for the most part, it's like.
So you've talked a ton about Natalie herself. Like, does it seem like maybe it's almost more of a solo record?
It is. I mean, the one thing that they do have is like the other 2 sisters in there, and their sisters. Natalie Maines is not.
Okay.
But you know, they are the instrumentalists, and the harmonies that they produce are very good, but I don't think that they have any sort of lead vocal parts on any of the tracks.
Okay.
So it is more about her, and it's more about her story, I think.
Well, and that's cool. I mean, it's cool that they're cohesive enough to, like, I'm assuming that obviously they didn't go through something that she went through or that she experienced, and that they were basically like, it sounds like they kind of let her have the album. You know what I mean? From like a creative, lyrical and songwriting concept. If I'm wrong about that, let me know. But it sounds like they did.
Yeah, and from what I can understand, that's kind of what they did. Is like, she found a source of writing that, like, she found this whole thing therapeutic to create songs out of it. And I think that's what's cool, is because it sounded like when they decided to try and get back in the studio, she didn't really have much to say, but then this divorce thing happened, and then it was like, oh, I have shit to say now.
The floodgates open.
And then it was just like 12 tracks of just brutal, like, and I'm like, just listen to some of them, and it is like,
no, really... No, seriously, like, you know me.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I enjoy country music to an extent. I think a lot of the crossover country and pop country that's on the radio, I think there's a lot of trash out there. And that's not to say that it's like that I hate it all, but I think it's just simplistic, and it's made for a money grab. And I get it. Like, if I was in that realm and had that ability, like, to basically, you know, get my stuff out there that easily, I would probably make songs like that too. But that's just my opinion on it, you know, whatever. Yeah. But if you write a good song, you write a good song. Like, there's plenty of country songs that I enjoy. It's just they typically lean more towards traditional country as opposed to like Luke Bryan.
Yeah. On a dirt road, drinking a beer in my pickup truck.
But I don't want to turn this into a country bashing show because I like bluegrass and like I enjoy a lot of aspects of that, especially from a guitar standpoint. And so I will definitely listen to some of the album for sure, and maybe all of it.
And one thing I will say is that you would appreciate is Jack Antonoff produced it. So he's the guy from Bleachers and Fun.
Okay, I was gonna say I know that name, and I don't know why I know that name, but
I know you're a big Bleachers fan.
Yeah, and I forgot I was a big Bleachers fan because I haven't listened to their albums in a while.
Yeah, and I didn't realize how much he's involved in. He put out Lana Del Rey's album last year, which won.
I didn't know that either.
That was on which is a fantastic album, and it was on a bunch of end of year lists and everything. But
that's cool.
He's been on a hot streak the last 10 years. I did not realize.
I mean, some of those songs that he put out with Bleachers were I absolutely loved. But I never thought we would have a 12-minute dive basically into the Chicks / the Dixie Chicks.
So going on to you.
If you asked me at the start of this, would we ever talk in depth about the Dixie Chicks? I would have said no chance in hell. But I'm glad we did because that's what the whole show's about. So that's awesome that we did that.
Yeah.
So for me, something new was something you had mentioned last week, which I don't think you've listened to. And I had actually mentioned to you today and said that I thought it was just okay. And then I decided to listen to it one more time. And I think maybe the focus that I gave the album made me realize that it's pretty fucking good.
I'm curious.
Would be My Morning Jacket's Waterfall 2.
Will you check that out?
So I listened to it like 3 times.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Well, so musically, like obviously you know what I listen to. You know this stylistically kind of like what I play and what I'm into. Mm-hmm. And we're into a lot of the same stuff. So even though I haven't really done a ton of diving into My Morning Jacket throughout my life, mm-hmm. I definitely think that musically their style fits me a lot and what I like. And it's funny that sometimes there's these bands that it's like you just start discovering, even though stylistically they may have been perfect for you the whole time, and you just like you never got around to getting to diving into them or whatever.
Yeah.
So this album's 10 tracks long, and the only other albums I've listened to like 3 albums by My Morning Jacket. What's the one, the 2005 album? What is it called? It's like Z. I almost said W.
It's a letter. Some letter in there.
Yeah, single letter.
I think I called it G on like the second episode.
But so I went through this album, and the first time I listened to it was on one of my walks, because I'm like getting to the age where I take walks now. Like I work out, and then when I'm bored in the middle of the night, I literally I take walks.
It's like the Passion Pit song.
I literally there are songs on here that I really, really like. There's like 4. I think I have like 4 key tracks out of the 10 listed. And I had asked you before we got started tonight, what was that song that you always sing during karaoke? And it's what is it? Is it Free My Soul?
It's called Drift Away by Dobie Gray.
Drift Away by Dobie Gray. So
the Uncle Cracker version.
So the reason I brought that up to you is because the first time I listened to the album, track 7 was the one that caught my attention the most by far.
Okay.
And it's called Run It. And it's called Run It, but it has that same tone and vibe of Dobie Gray's song throughout most of it. But it's really enjoyable. It's very simple. Very catchy. It's just it's a very simple but well done song.
Yeah.
And regarding like the themes of divorce, which you talked about, and like separation on the Chicks album. I think, I don't know, I didn't do a bunch of research into the backstory or anything like that, but lyrically, from what I hear on it, I think that may have been kind of a theme to the album as well, which like I bring up because obviously it ties into what we had just talked about. But so Run It was, to me, initially the most standout track on the album and still stands out really, really well. I think like on a station like XRT here in Chicago, they're going to get a ton of play from this record. And I know XRT already plays them, you know, frequently, but I definitely think you're going to see maybe 3 or 4 songs get, you know, good airplay on a station like that, and maybe other stations as well. But the other songs I really liked was track 2 is called Still Thinking. It's kind of got like a Beach Boys vibe to it. But like I said, or I haven't said yet, but on this album, I thought you had a lot of good, I thought it goes together well, but songs have kind of different tones and vibes to them. And it's just really well done. It's just, overall, I thought it was just really good. The third listen really made me, I think, catch on to it. I don't know if maybe it was like I finally decided to dive into it with a like very specific focus, you know, and go back into it. But Climbing the Ladder is the third track on the album, and it goes from this kind of Beach Boys vibe, and all of a sudden Climbing the Ladder has this it's like a steel pedal melody, and it opens right into the steel pedal melody. It might be slide, but I think it's steel pedal guitar. But it opens right into that and kind of takes you right out of the previous song you listened to and puts you in this kind of almost country, little bit of bluegrass vibe. Okay. But a really fun track. And then Magic Bullet is track 6 on the album. And that song has more of kind of a Black Keys. And I say this in relation to Tame Impala, but without necessarily like knowing a ton of Tame Impala's kind of sound and style. But it does kind of remind me a little bit of some of the songs that I've heard from them. So, like I said, I know I had said to you that I thought it was just kind of okay at first. And then today I gave it another listen, and it was fun. It was fun to kind of have like that moment of being like kicked in the head of like, no, this is good, dude. You're an idiot for not thinking it was good in the first place.
And that's why you have to give these things a chance, because sometimes it's right time, right place kind of thing, right mindset. And I mean, would you say that they've progressed as a band? Would you say that they're kind of rehashing old tricks, or are you like, is that why you liked it? Or is
I'm not exactly sure, because it's hard for me to say that as somebody that hasn't really been through their entire discography. It's not fair for me to say. But
in relation to Z, does it sound kind of the same, or is it like a refinement, or is it?
Listen to Z again, because I've only listened to Z like twice.
Okay.
So I'm failing miserably at your question and answer session here, and I apologize.
This is Hardball with Steve.
What I will say is that I think that they show you what they're capable of. I think you've probably heard some of it on previous albums, but I also think that cohesively as an album itself, I think it's very strong. Whereas, you know, so like sometimes a band you really love, you pick up their new album and it might only hit you with like 2 or 3 tracks that you found really had a lot of like the elements that you loved from the band originally, or that type of thing. From what I've heard from them, it sounds like them to me. Okay. But at the same time, I think the songs are very well done. I think they're really good at occasionally changing the key in a song, or essentially changing the tone in a song. There are some songs on the album that have a fairly positive vibe to them. And then, you know, towards the end, they might change it up a little bit and just end in that kind of, you know, that key change and never come back to the original one.
But I hate when songs do that.
Yes, but at the same time, I also think from a writing perspective, I think it takes some stones to do that.
Yeah, because you're taking that expectation out of it. Yeah.
I think it's really hard as somebody that plays guitar to not always come back when you've written like a full piece of music or feel like you've written a full piece of music. It's so hard to go to like what you might consider the bridge or what you might consider, the key change of the song and just end it there. Mm-hmm. The bridge usually kind of is that moment of like, we're waiting to come back to the pre-chorus or the you know what I mean?
And it's always funny in instances like that where your brain, like, especially if it's background music and you're listening to something and then all of a sudden you're not really giving it your full attention, but in the back of your head, you're thinking like, okay, so here comes the chorus, here comes the bridge, here comes the outro. And then you're expecting like the next phase and then they just cut it out. Like and all of a sudden your attention is brought right back into the music because you weren't expecting it. It's unconventional and it's not what your brain is expected for the full piece of the album or the full song.
And I'm sure I've told you this a million times before, but our listeners haven't heard it. And I can't remember his name right now. But when I was in my senior year of high school, I took MIDI music, and our teacher, and like I was a shitty musician back then.
Yeah.
Like I consider myself an okay musician now, but I didn't really understand music back then. I have a much better understanding of music now, and I still don't have a great understanding of music, at least in my opinion. However, our teacher said one thing that I will never, ever forget him saying. And it was basically, when you're writing a piece of music, the best part about music is when you build up an expectation, and as a listener, the person's listening and they have this expectation of where the song's going to go, and you completely break that expectation for them. And he said that, and I was like, yeah, that is really awesome when, it doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to be good, but like you just said, you can break that expectation to the point where what you thought was background noise or background music and you were just kind of like subtly enjoying has now completely brought your full brain attention to that point, which I've always appreciated that thought.
Well, I know, just because I want to throw it in there because we talked about Nine Inch Nails and them getting the itch. In the song The Fragile, he does this real subtle trick. And as the chorus is coming in, the chorus is, I won't let you fall apart. I won't let you fall apart. And then in the second, I think it's the second chorus that he does it.
I'm writing it down because I'm going to listen to it after we get off the webs here.
Listen to what he does, where he goes, he does it. It's a very slow and kind of like driving song. And it goes, I won't let you fall apart. I'm not going to sing the whole thing. And then he skips like a half of a beat and then jumps into like, because he repeats it. He says, I won't let you fall apart. And then the first time around, he gives it that full like measure pause, and then goes into I won't let you fall apart. The second time he does it, or the first time, I can't remember, but it's this subtle thing that all of a sudden it's a slow song, so you can lose your attention really easily. But he skips that half a beat, and it messes with your brain enough that you just listen like, did the track skip? Did I miss something? And it brings you back into the song. And it's like this really nifty trick that is something that you might not catch if you're not paying attention to it, but your brain always kind of jumps back into the song. So it's The Fragile, like the actual song, The Fragile.
Yeah. And the fun thing about like, sometimes the thing that's like makes songwriters really amazing is not what they do with all of the tools they have, but what they don't do. When you leave that space for something. And, I've said this to you all the time, like, keep it simple, stupid. The simplest songs a lot of times are the best songs because you can do so much with so little, and less is more, and all those sayings you hear. And then sometimes there's moments in songs, and like, I'm totally nerding out from like a music perspective. I'm like super jacked up talking about this right now. But there's moments in songs where like things are so subtle and so minimalistic, but it makes the entire fucking song. And so many great musicians and songwriters just, it seems like they have this inherent knack for it. And when you hear it, you know it, and it's the coolest shit ever. And as somebody that like writes music and plays and whatnot, there's times just like, I would never think to do that in a million years, you know, and you did it, and it just nailed everything. And that's awesome. That's the best part about shit like that.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's all about arrangement too. It's knowing what's most important in the song. What comes first? Is it, you know, rhythm? Is it the bass? Is it the guitar? Is it the piano? Like,
well, it depends on the song you're writing and what you're trying to convey and that type of thing. Like all that plays into that.
Well, that's why like you hear acoustic renditions of songs sometimes, and like all of a sudden the lyrics now have a new meaning to you because you've stripped away everything else.
Yeah.
And you have a guitar and a voice. And that's why like the song Satisfied Man by Stephen Kellogg.
Oh God, I love that song.
Like all that song is just acoustic guitar, C, G, A minor, and F. And he tells like, because
it's a soul crusher. That song is a soul crusher.
But he puts the lyrics at the front, and it's like,
so
you're
good.
not. It's like you have a nice backbeat to it, but it's like the song is about the lyrics, and
so good.
Yeah. So
and you want to talk about like more of a country vibe? Like Stephen Kellogg, as he got older, definitely just kept progressing to that country vibe. And
and he still has. I think he's done a lot of really good things as he's gotten older. You know, things change, and we can go into that a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
But.
So, all right, let's jump to, what is it? The Other Medium, right? Something you watched, read.
Something
whatever.
old.
Oh, something old. Okay, we're on something old. So dive into that was old.
So something is somebody who grew up listening to lots of like hardcore and punk and everything in high school. I
my rage.
Fucking tear. So actually I checked out, and I've known about it for a long time, and I've heard the folklore around it, but Refused, The Shape of Punk to Come. Have you ever listened to that?
No idea what you're talking about.
Really?
No.
Okay. So, man, sit back.
Yeah, all right. I mean, you know me in punk music. I'm excited.
So, I mean, Refused is a band. They started in like 91. So it was kind of in like the 90s hardcore scene, you know, more traditional hardcore, like Minor Threat, stuff like that. And then 1998 rolls around. They're from Sweden, and they come out with this record that is like, they basically take hardcore as it is at that time. And it doesn't sound as unique now because we've been through the 2000s and so many of the bands have taken things from this album.
Okay.
But the list.
It's Refused, and what's the name of the album?
The Shape of Punk to Come.
Okay, sorry. Go on. So many bands have taken things from this album.
Yeah, basically. So it came out in 98, and it did terribly when it first came out.
Yay!
It was horrible. But you know, getting into the actual sound of the album, what was important about it was it took those sort of like more simplistic hardcore band songs, you know, because hardcores can sometimes be simplistic. But the name itself was The Shape of Punk to Come. So like that is a bold name.
That is a bold statement for sure.
Yeah. So basically you're saying like this is the next like new noise. And then the opening of the first track on the album is talking about the new classics. So like they're first of all like very egotistical about like what they think this album's gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
And then they back it up with 12 tracks of just like things that still hold their ground today in terms of their sound.
Okay.
I'm
really excited to listen to this album now.
It's heavy, and it hits on a lot of different genres that, especially for the time, were not like something you would expect. You know, there's obviously like hardcore and punk, but there's like jazz, there's electronic, there's folk, like there's things in there that like you didn't hear at the time. And again, like it's taking into account that this was 1998, like not like before a lot of the bands of the 2000s that came out. but it's had impacts on people from like, from Linkin Park to Thursday to La Dispute to like you just countless. Like you can look at the list of bands that have quoted this as like the album that shaped who they are.
That's awesome. I'm really excited to listen to some of this.
Yeah, but there's a lot of like they also include interludes within, so like the whole thing flows together in like this really unique like just it's great. I liked it a lot. And it still holds up, it's 22 years old. It still sounds like it could come out today.
Okay.
Which is cool. A lot of the themes on it are more like politically based and attack capitalism.
In true punk anti-fascist fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it just sucks because, well, like part of the legacy of the actual album that came out was they released it and then it like basically got no recognition. They were playing a tour. They played in Europe. That was kind of like a disappointing tour. Then they came to the United States. They played half a tour in the US and like they were playing in basement shows at like house shows and stuff. Their final show that they played, there was like 45 people there in a basement. The cops got called on them and they shut the show down basically. But yeah, so I mean basically they had.
So their final show was what though? Because I didn't hear you.
Oh, okay. So their final show was repeat that. It was like, so like they basically like they put out this album that they like threw everything into creatively. Yeah. Like they're excited about it. Like they go on tour. The shows are not packed. Like there's like 30 to 40 people that are showing up to these shows, and they thought they put out something that was revolutionary at the time. So they come to the US, they tour. Like they had basically been in such a point of like they're ready to break up. Like they even wrote like one of the songs on the album is called Refused Are Fucking Dead, because they basically like I think they knew that they were going to break up on after the album came out. But their last show, they basically show up to the US. Like the guitarist, I don't even think brought his guitar or his amp or anything. Like that's how much they like stopped caring.
Yeah.
And they play this house show in like Harrisonburg, Virginia. So it's like rural, whatever, Virginia. 45 kids show up. They play this like crazy, like it was rumored it might be their last show. They play like 4 songs, or they play 3 songs. The cops show up. They're like, this is our last song. So they play, I can't even remember the song. But and then they shut the show down, and then they break up as a band, and then they never like play again together for the next 14 years. And in the meantime, like the album sold 1,000 records in its first year, which is like nothing.
Yeah.
And then people started hearing about it, and all these people started like generating interest in it. And then it was like 21,000, then 28,000, and like it basically went on to become one of the highest highest sold hardcore albums of all time. So basically they had created this like ethos, or like this mythological like legacy that they had, like they
word of mouth legend.
Yeah, basically. They made this album, they dropped off the face of the earth, and then like the world took it, and then every
like
band,
Sugar Man.
Yeah. And so it was one of those things where like it just shaped so many of the things that you hear coming out of the 2000s. Then after that, like bands like Paramore and Frank Turner drew from it. Linkin Park was a big one. But you can find a ton of different artists that basically like that without that album, they would not sound like how they sound. But the album itself, and I didn't realize it was actually one of the songs in Friday Night Lights, the movie.
Really?
Yeah. It's called The New Noise, and it's like probably their best, like, I mean, it's a single basically. But you'll recognize it maybe if you hear it off of the album.
Probably, because I've seen Friday Night Lights a bunch of times.
Which is one of like the best movies, which we should do a whole episode on explosions in the sky.
Yes, we could.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I want to go with something old. I can take it in two directions. I'll let you pick. I listen to. Actually, no. I'm going to take it to where I want to take it to real quick. Something old. I revisit this album probably once every 5 months. I listen to Blink-182's "Damn It," and I'll never stop listening to it ever. If you've never listened to it, I feel sorry for you. It's a huge reason why I play guitar and how I got into music, along with Green Day's Dookie. But that album has shaped me as a musician in so much of a way. It's insane. So I went for a run earlier this week, and I put that album on, and then I ended up listening to the whole album again. I don't think I need to say much about that album, and if we want to keep this episode to just...
I've never listened to it.
You've never listened to it?
Nope.
That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard you say.
I mean, I know the song "Damn It," but the rest of the songs on that album, I couldn't tell you a single one.
Dude, all right, so Enthused, and I would say probably Lemmings. I think what you get in that album, one thing Blink-182 has never tried to do is be something they're not. I think they've always written songs that they've wanted to write. Very rarely did they try and stray from what made them successful in the first place, which was always a great intro, a simple chorus, and a simple verse. And that was pretty much it. And
humor.
Yeah, and the songs were always honest and generally fast and fun and poppy, and that's what they did, and they did it well.
Mm-hmm.
But I always talk about that sophomore album kind of having, or that, you know, that first feature album kind of having, because like Cheshire Cat came out and Buddha, and those were kind of more like the undercard releases. But Damn It was their first, like, really, you know, like, hey, we're here, we've got some power, and now we've got some money behind us.
Was Travis Barker on that?
Huh?
Was Travis on that?
No, their drummer's name was Scott. I forget his last name. Supposedly Scott left the band to go to college basically after they released that album, and then Travis was playing for the Aquabats, and if I remember correctly, they had tried out Travis. Somehow they like met up with him or met him on tour of, like, you know, crossover kind of, like, you know, bands were together or whatnot.
Yeah.
And Travis, from what I understand, basically learned the entire album in like an hour, like, because he just could play it. But you know, and Scott obviously went away, and I hope he made money off that album, and I hope he's enjoying his life, and, you know, that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, dude, you were part of important, in my opinion, one of the most important albums of the 90s, and that's not many people can say that, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
But so like Lemmings, I think what you hear on that is so much of young songwriting, but the songwriting was there. I think the talent was there, and it really got pulled out in Damn It. Like, so obviously some of it's funny and stupid, but there's some songs on there when you listen to the lyrical content that you can tell, like, you remember being a young kid, you remember being 19, you remember being 20, and you remember being 21, thinking like, these are life events, you know, that are happening to you, are these hugely important things, which now when you look back 15 years from, you know, we're 34, I look back at me being 20 and I'm like, that's fucking peanuts. Shit didn't matter, you know. But in that moment, it feels so big and so important. And I think they did such a good job, like Mark especially on, I think it's Lemmings, and songs like Enthused. But there's so many good songs on that album, and there's so many good riffs on that album. And the video I put on Instagram was me playing part of Enthused, which is like one of my favorite little punk riffs to play.
Nice.
And nobody named the song, by the way. I said, can anybody name that song? And there were only like 30 people that watched the video, but no one could name it.
I couldn't, because I haven't heard it.
But listen to fucking Damn It if you haven't listened to it. We're in an hour. That's all I'm going to say about it. It's the album punk-wise that had a huge – that and Dookie are basically the reasons I play guitar today and are the reasons I became the musician, or I guess guitar player. I don't necessarily should say musician because I don't really record a lot of music, but you know, that album is a huge part of why I play music today.
Cool. I will say that if you are interested in like the backstory of that stuff, there was a YouTube video I watched a few weeks ago called "The Pursuit of Tone" with Tom DeLonge.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh, you have? Okay. So basically, like, he kind of does, like, drives around the streets of his hometown, like, this is where we started, this is where we played here, blah, blah, blah. But, okay. Then,
yes.
All right. So you've seen it.
Yeah. Most of the Blink-182 things I've seen. Most of them. Not all of them, but most of them. All right. So we covered something old. What are we going to now? Something other media?
Different. Something different.
What was different this week?
So I'll keep this short because it's fucking stupid. But we watched.
We're at roughly an hour.
Yeah, no. So we're gonna try and keep this shorter. Something we watched this weekend was Eurovision, which was that new.
The Will Ferrell Netflix movie.
Yeah. And
so I started it, but I never finished it because I fell asleep. But it's because it was like 2 a.m.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, it was entertaining, I guess, but like I don't think I laughed like really once.
Okay.
And it's not to say it was bad. It was a feel good movie.
It's just there.
Yeah. But the one thing that I did like about it was the songs, in terms of creating comedic songs, appreciating the art form of something like that, you know, like Tenacious D kind of like,
yeah,
to be able to make comedy out of music is really interesting as like an art form to me. But the last song, the kind of climax of that movie, there's a song called My Hometown, and it's like Husavik, I think is how you pronounce it. But I freaking love that song, and it gave me goosebumps. And it's actually like a serious song in the movie. And I'm not going to ruin the movie for anybody listening, but it's definitely something that was like,
spoiler alert on this giant blockbuster.
Yeah. But it came out of nowhere, and it was something that like really like I just absolutely think it's a beautiful song. But going beyond that, the one thing that kind of is my something different outside of music is that I did not know Eurovision was a real thing.
Oh, it's an actual show?
Apparently you did not either.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, apparently it's like
got the Euro voice, right?
Yeah, but it's been around for 60 years, and the whole idea is that like it was.
Is it like Star Search?
It started after like World War II, and the idea was to kind of start rebuilding the gaps between the countries during like after the war.
Okay.
And so it was
really
using using music to kind of like create like, okay, we might not get along politically because you just bombed the shit out of my country, but
that's crazy though. That's really interesting, especially like a former history major. That's super interesting.
Yeah, and so I mean that's what really drew me to it, and like my interest to it was really that backstory of like, how did this start? Like, why is it? You know, obviously it's evolved over the years, and it started basically they were trying to create a European broadcast station. And this was something that I think it was 1951, 1956 that they started this, but it was rebuilding those relationships between countries. But you get like this melting pot of different song styles, different lyrics, or languages, I guess you should say. And what happens is like, say I sing for my country, which is Germany, because I'm Schmidt. I would then cast my vote for like whatever other countries that I thought should win.
So like you can't vote for yourself?
Yeah, you can't vote for yourself, but you vote for the other countries, and you have like a certain amount of points, I think, that you hand out.
Okay.
So, but the concept was really cool, and the movie was actually supposed to coincide with the beginning of Eurovision, which was like the 60th anniversary, I think.
Okay.
Which really bums me out because this is the first time they've ever canceled it because of COVID, obviously. But they're like really over the top, like ballads, like, you know, the showmanship, because you get one song to sing. You have to sing the same
David
song.
Hasselhoff-esque.
Sort of. But the idea is that like you only get one song to sing, and you have to win with that song. And so I don't know if you play like 2-3 times, but So, I mean, like that, and it just seems like the most American thing ever that I needed to find out about it from like a Will Ferrell movie.
Yeah, right.
But it's a really interesting concept. I hope it comes back next year. And I know because Will Ferrell is actually the inspiration for the movie was like he found out about it in like 1999 and like fell in love with it. He actually is a really big Eurovision fan. And in the movie, there's a bunch of Eurovision like past winners and stuff.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So I mean, he despite the fact that he's like kind of making fun of it in comedy terms, like he still is paying respect to it. Like
that's awesome.
So that was kind of my something different this week was like learning more about Eurovision.
Okay, so my something different was this video that I saw. I think it got posted via Jambase, or not posted via Jambase, but that's how I heard about it.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the show or series called 2 Minutes to Late Night? I feel like you probably are because you're kind of a internet like podcast type nerd, or no?
I have not heard of this. I don't know what you're talking about.
So 2 Minutes to Late Night is basically, I did a little research on it before we started the show. So what I watched this week was a video of, it's mostly Zoom based, of Claudio Sanchez from Coheed and Cambria.
Okay. Already even interested.
Yep. All right. It gets better. Les Claypool of Primus. Billy Kelleher, I believe his name is, from Mastodon, which Mastodon's a band I know people love, and I've heard some tracks from, but I know people are like, dude, Mastodon's awesome, blah, blah, blah. And then, who was it? It's, hold on one second. Sorry, I apologize. I think it was Danny Carey, who is from Tool. So the drummer from Tool, Les Claypool, from Primus, obviously, and the guitarist from Mastodon, and they cover Rush's song Anthem, and it is awesome. It is like super prog rock metal, total awesomeness. So the premise of this show is called 2 Minutes to Late Night, and it started in 2016. And it's hosted by two comedians named Jordan Oles and Drew Kaufman. And so this video had appeared on YouTube. This is from a website I'm reading the article from called Kerrang, that had Metal World laughing its collective ass off. Set in Brooklyn's famed metal venue, St. Vitus Bar, it featured a corpse-painted talk show host named Arsenio Hall hosting a talk show all about metal, complete with a weather report from Danzig's house, a guest appearance by Dillinger Escape Plan's Ben Weinman, and Brooklyn speed metalers Mutoid Man as the house band. The video was a pilot for 2 Minutes to Late Night, a heavy metal talk show that instantly became a staple of every underground metalhead's viral diet. So that's what this stemmed from. The performance is awesome. They have tons of other performances on there. So this is something I totally plan to check out more of. Super fucking cool, super funny, 2 Minutes to Late Night, and just like musical face fuck you awesomeness. It is like, it's metal as hell. It's great. It was super cool. I was so happy I clicked on it, and I was like, this is my perfect thing for this week's show.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I really want to go back and watch
2 Minutes to Late Night. I plan to watch like more clips of this shit. Super cool. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I think you'll enjoy it just as much as I do. Even if you're not a metal fan, the enthusiasm that they bring to it is super fun. Like Les Claypool is playing bass in a full-on gas mask in his Zoom thing. And like Claudio is like laughing in between his vocal sets, on the Rush song, because like Rush is obviously very heavily music based.
Yeah.
And like they're just having so much fun with it, and it's awesome. It's awesome. I can't wait to watch more of it.
Dude, I really want to check that out.
Yeah, 2 Minutes to Late Night. So, what else you got for me, man?
I mean, just kind of digging into the mailbag a little bit. I went back and listened to something that Matt Levy had recommended a few weeks back.
Levy, 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5.
I know. We missed him last week.
Matt Levy.
But I did listen to Julien Baker's sprain.
You listen to what?
Julien Baker sprained ankle.
Okay.
And it is a haunting record.
Depressing as.
Yeah, I mean it's like only 30 minutes long, but it's super heavy. It's very sparse.
It looks like it took a lot out of you.
It did.
It's the way you're talking about it. Looks like it took an emotional toll on you.
It is, and like there's this sense of like yeah, and there's it's like a sense of isolation. It's very bare bones, like just a girl with a guitar, like in a studio kind of thing, like playing very limited amounts of instrumentation, but her voice is like front and center with that kind of thing. And kind of going back to what we were saying before about like putting the important parts where it matters, like lyrics and voice in this was like, you know, it talks, you know, about a bunch of different things like drug addiction, depression, anxiety, like problems with faith and religion. Like she got in a car accident, like a street lamp fell and like almost killed her. Like, but it is heavy. It's a beautiful album. It's something that like you want to go sit in a coffee shop and listen to maybe. But
or cry alone in your room under the covers.
Yeah, but it was something I just like threw on one day. But it
caught your attention very, like very passionately, obviously.
Yeah, no, and it's something that, you know, I enjoyed for the most part. I'm glad it didn't go longer than like 30 minutes because I was like really just, you know, just squirming.
You might have killed yourself.
Yeah, so it's not a happy album, but it's beautiful in its own way. And it's if you like just sort of, it reminded me a lot, sort of like Laura Stevenson's Wheel.
Don't know what that is.
I actually shouldn't even say that because like that's more upbeat. This is literally like there's not a lot of diverting from that sort of.
Is it like an Elliott Smith record?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
But it's just, you know, girl and a guitar. You know, one song has a piano, but most of it is pretty similar. But like 30 minutes was like the right amount of length. But it was very pretty album, very good album. I would say, you know, if you're looking to be sad, go listen to it.
Or if you're really happy and you feel like you're too happy and you need to bring yourself down.
Bring it down. So, I mean, that's the only thing from the mailbag that I really had to offer this week.
But, I have nothing from the mailbag as usual, or at least for like the last 3 episodes. Okay. I make my own mailbag. I do what I want.
I do it. So if we want to, we can move to the raffle portion.
Oh yes, yes. Steve's gonna give away $20.
I am.
I'm gonna Chase quick pay him 10, so we're gonna give away $20.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll pay each other back.
I got you.
So for anyone listening, the premise is if you share this show or you subscribe, we'll even throw that in. We'll throw you maybe a chance to win $20, and this is what we're doing. I'm gonna share my screen so you know it's legit.
Oh, this is our first screen share. I feel like we should have a drum roll.
Oh, yeah. Glad I don't screw it up.
I think you already did.
Probably. All right, here we go.
There it is.
Can you see it? All right. Some lucky person who helped share this show is going to win $20 for doing practically nothing.
Take down your porn tabs, Steve.
Oh, no. Oh, who's it gonna be? Brian Sokolowski.
Oh, congratulations, Brian.
Yes, but the key is that you have to listen to the show, and the keyword, you have to message us, either Sean or I, or our Instagram account, or email us at off.key.podcast.
At gmail.com. You need to finish that. But no one's going to email us. Just use the Instagram.
Yeah, it's all good.
The email is just for us.
Yeah, but you have to send us the message. The keyword for this week is Dos Burritos, because you can buy 2 burritos with $20. So
you can only get a burrito and a half with $20 if you go double meat, though.
It's true. So congratulations to Brian. You win $20 for doing nothing, and specifically calling out this will be the easiest $20 you ever made.
But if he doesn't, we'll just pick another winner and they'll win $20.
Yeah, if he doesn't listen, then he doesn't win the money.
So
that's the trick. So
I hope we just get a bunch of messages from non-winners that says Dos Burritos. But next week on the show, we are going to give away, or I'm going to give away, a set of my favorite guitar strings. So if you are a musician or a guitar player, I discovered Elixir strings about 10 years ago. Obviously, if you've followed along with us on Instagram, you know that we don't have enough followers to have sponsors. So this isn't a sponsorship thing. I love Elixir strings. They're awesome. They last forever. They feel amazing, and they sound incredible. So I'm going to run to Guitar Center and buy a set of Elixir. I'll probably pick electric strings just because I feel like more people probably play electric than acoustic. And I'm going to give those away, which if you've never played them, they rule. So, yeah, be listening next week. We're going to do the same thing. Real quick, as we try and finish up, before we hit an hour 20, homework for me. What do you got?
So real quick, notable mentions. I won't go into it, but Lollapalooza live stream is happening this weekend. It's past performances because it was canceled this year. Probably gonna check that out.
I saw that. Yeah, to Lollapalooza 2020, quote unquote.
And Megan's been really into BTS, the Korean
dude,
boy band.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So I might be diving into that next week.
You're gonna dive into some K-pop. I watched a student do a report on K-pop when I went to UIC.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I know a lot about K-pop.
Yeah. And then, but yeah, the only other thing this week is just to come up with the homework assignment. And I think for you, I've been just thinking about it. There's a band out of Australia called the Smith Street Band. And the album is More Scared of You Than You Are of Me.
Okay.
And it's from a couple of years ago, and it's just it's fun. I like that album. I don't know. I wanted you to listen to it and see if you like it.
I'm writing it down right now, and I'm gonna circle and double highlight this chicken scratch. And I don't know what I have for you. Is there anything I talked about that you want to give to yourself?
Maybe I'll listen to Blink 182.
Well, that should have been homework 20 fucking years ago, but
well, send me something later and I will surprise everyone next week with it.
All right. We did it. We finished under an hour 20. It is just slightly longer than our first episode. We love you guys for listening. I know we had 40 or 50 streams, I think, this week. Some watches on YouTube, 11 downloads. To anybody that's listening or watching, we really, really appreciate it. We're still having a ton of fun doing this show, and that's all we want this to be, is fun for you guys and fun for us. So if Steve has anything else to add, I think that's it for this week, episode 5.
Nope.
All right. Keep music, guys. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Have a great weekend, everybody.